Once, there was a large Buddhist monastery where a group of disciples lived and practiced Buddhism under the guidance of their master. However, the atmosphere in the monastery was not healthy. Instead of focusing on their meditation and spiritual growth, the disciples spent a lot of time gossiping about each other. Among these disciples was one who stood out for his excessive talking. He would gossip about others and share stories he heard while collecting food from the nearby houses. He had a habit of boasting about himself, claiming superiority over the others. He would often remind them that he came from a wealthy family and could have lived a comfortable life. But he chose to seek truth instead. One day, the master decided to test his disciples. He called them together and announced, "Each of you must make a resolution for the next month, something that will test your willpower and determination. If you fail, you can return to your old routine." Each disciple made their resolution, but the one who considered himself superior to all went to the master and said, "Master, I want a resolution that surpasses all others. Please give me something extraordinary." The master smiled and replied, "Can you really take up the resolution given by me?" The disciple said, driven by his pride, "Master, I am capable of doing anything." The master again smiled and said, "If that is so, then fine. Remain silent for the next 1 month." The disciple said with arrogance, "Master, this is too easy challenge. Give me some tough challenge." But the master insisted and said, "First prove yourself with this challenge." The disciple obeyed the master and became silent. He found it much easier to remain silent. The following day, the disciple adhered to the resolution and remained silent. Initially, it did not seem too difficult, but as day passed, the burden of silence grew heavier. By the second day, he started feeling uncomfortable, and by the third day, he started to feel uneasy. On the fourth day, his urge to speak intensified, especially as he observed other disciples chatting freely. Being naturally talkative, he struggled to maintain silence. As days passed, the silence became suffocating, and he grew sick of it. Unable to bear it any longer, he approached his master and wrote, "Master, I can't stay silent anymore. It is driving me mad. Please let me break my resolution." The master responded in a calm voice, "I did not impose this resolution on you, so I can't ask you to break it. It is your decision. Many of your fellow monks have already broken their resolutions. If you can't keep it, you are free to break it. But remember, mastering your resolutions shows control over your mind and leads to awakening." The disciple felt hurt by the master's words and came back to his room. He locked himself inside and started to spend most of his time in solitude. Despite the gossip and chattering around him, he remained silent, surprising everyone in the monastery. After a few days, he approached the master again and wrote, "Master, I am silent from outside, but my mind keeps chattering inside. I am struggling with inner thoughts of my mind." The master advised him that, as long as he stays in the monastery, the voices of his fellow monks would continue to disturb him. Therefore, he should leave to some solitude place. Encouraged by this advice, the disciple left the monastery and went to the nearby forest. As a month passed by, the disciple's resolution period came to an end. But, surprisingly, he did not return to the monastery. This caused worry among the other disciples. They worried that he might have fallen prey to wild animals while wandering in the forest. However, The master remained optimistic. He felt there was a deeper reason behind the disciples' decision to stay away from the monastery. 2 months passed, but the disciple did not return. The whole monastery lost hope, believing that he had been eaten by wild animals. Even after 3 months, there was no news of him. Slowly and slowly, they began to forget about him. Then one day, suddenly, the disciple returned to the monastery. This caused a lot of surprise and joy to everyone in the monastery. However, he seemed different now. There was a remarkable calmness and peace about him that had not been there before. Excitedly, the other monks surrounded him and started questioning him. They noticed that he no longer seemed as impatient or talkative as before. His words flowed smoothly and sweetly. After chatting with the fellow monks, the disciple approached the master, bowed down to him, and asked, "Master, am I still silent? Is my resolution still on?" The master looked at him carefully and replied, "Yes, you are still silent. Your resolution is still on." The other disciples were taken aback and asked, "Master, he is talking to you. How can you say that his resolution of silence is still on?" The master calmly explained, "Yes, he is speaking, but from inside, his mind is completely silent. That's why I say his resolution is still on." Then the master turned to the disciple and inquired about his journey of the past 3 months. The disciple began to share, "Master, when I left the monastery, I appeared silent, but my mind was constantly thinking. I hoped that the deep forest would help to quiet my mind, but my attempts only made it more restless. Eventually, I stopped trying to forcefully control my thoughts and started observing my mind without judgment. Slowly and slowly, my mind began to calm down and the restlessness started to fade away. I started to realize my past mistakes, like gossiping about others, considering myself superior to others, and talking unnecessary. As I was observing my mind was becoming free of impurities. As I delved deep into my mind and carefully watched every thought that arose, I noticed something significant happening. The constant chatter in my mind started to quiet down, bringing a sense of calmness and peace. Gradually, my mind became empty and I lived in the present moment, experiencing true silence and peace. Then suddenly, I started to fear losing these moments. But then I realized that fear itself was just a thought of mind, and I am not mind, I am the observer. Then looking at his master gratefully, he said, "Master, all thanks to your guidance that I attained this peaceful state of mind." The master blessed him and then addressed all the other disciples and said, "You see, I always told you that forcefully quieting the mind is not the answer, but by becoming a witness to our thoughts, we can naturally quiet the mind over time and stop its chattering." If we see in our life, we will find that we all crave peace of mind, but often struggle to achieve it because we don't understand the nature of our own mind. We try to control our thoughts forcefully, not realizing that this only makes our mind more restless. But when we start to watch our mind's activities, it starts to calm down. Like if a thief knows that someone is watching him, then he cannot steal. Similarly, when we start to watch our mind, it stops wandering here and there and stops chattering. Therefore, instead of trying to control our thoughts, we need to observe them without judgment, like watching a river flow by without getting caught up in each wave. This practice, known as mindfulness, involves simply being aware of our thoughts as they arise and letting them pass without getting entangled in them. By practicing mindfulness regularly, our minds gradually becomes calmer and less cluttered with thoughts. This allows us to navigate life's challenges with greater clarity and creativity. We discover hidden talents within ourselves and find a deeper sense of peace and contentment in the present moment. So, if you want to quiet your mind and experience true peace, then take a moment to find a quiet place, close your eyes, and simply observe your thoughts as they come and go. With patience and practice, you will find that your mind naturally becomes more serene, and you will uncover a newfound sense of tranquility in your life.